All right, everyone. Last looks. Quiet on set. Roll sound. Sound speed. Roll camera. Camera speed. Scene 1. Take 1. Market. And action. Hi, I'm Ed, the host of Savannah on Film, and we explore the economic and cultural impact and values of the film industry in Savannah through conversations with people who work in the industry and related fields. You can find us here on WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. Welcome to another episode, another show of Savannah on Film. I'm your host, Ed, and we are here on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. Today, here on Savannah on Film, our purpose is to explore the economic and cultural impact and values of the film industry in Savannah through conversations with people who work in the industry and related fields. We are here with Jesse Perry. Welcome, Jesse, to the show.
Howdy.
Jesse has many talents. He is very multi-talented, very astute. He is a writer, director, cinematographer, film editor, office PA, production designer, and visual effects artist. He started out... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. It just sounds funny when you read all that together.
Oh, okay. I'm reading your press here, so hopefully...
All right, I won't interrupt again.
No. Interrupt by all means. You're the guest here. You also started out as a Baptist minister, and then you decided to take a different path in your life. In high school, you were into model building. I toyed around a little bit with that, no pun intended, when I was young, but I had to do the snap-tight models. So,
yeah.
But let's see. You briefly minored in graphic design, and you were fascinated by the behind-the-scenes of movies like Star Wars, which we're both rabid fans of. Yes,
everybody.
And Star Trek, and you constructed a lot of Star Trek models.
Yeah, more Star Trek than Star Wars.
What's your favorite Enterprise?
Just have to be the D. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Hands down.
I always like the newer upgraded ones. So what are we on? Are we on F now or E?
Well,
what do we like? It depends on continuity.
Yeah, as far as the last one that appeared on screen would be the E.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, I'm a Picard. What are you?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Definitely a Picard.
We can talk about that, too, because he's kind of like my role model-ish kind of person.
We will definitely talk about that. Jean-Luc Picard, make it so. At one point, Jesse, you even constructed a Terminator hand, and I am a massive fan of the Terminator franchise. It's something I've always just loved, time travel and sci-fi. And this is way before the advent of cell phones to, put it in a time frame there, so a time perspective.
Oh, gosh, this was back, we didn't have internet until I was, a junior in high school. Because, I lived out in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere. Didn't have much there.
Right, yeah.
Before getting into filmmaking, you were shooting videos of weddings, and now you're into VR, which is virtual reality, and so much more. Some of your accomplishments, I'm going to roll through these real quick, and then we're going to discuss them if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. You won your first Academy Award. No.
Right. Let's talk about that.
That's on the feature page. Well, let's go back to 2010. You were a visual effects artist on the short The Red Hood.
Yep.
And then we go forward to...
SCAD student film.
Or SCAD student film, okay. And feel free to jump in if there's anything you want to say about them.
Sure.
In 2012, Phoenix Beyond was another short that you did.
Right.
And you were, I believe, a production designer on that.
Yeah. I kind of toyed around with a lot of things, trying to kind of feel my way out,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, go ahead, and then I'll we can come back to it.
Alrighty. Then we skip ahead in our time machine to One Happy Family, a short that you did in 2017, which you were cinematographer on?
Right, and editor.
And editor.
And visual effects artist.
Okay. All of the above.
Yeah.
You definitely are in post a lot, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm more of a post person, actually. I'm very comfortable with computers and, sitting behind the screen more than, being around a lot of people all the time.
And let's see, the next thing, you did a lot of films, and where we've probably first, I think, worked together, because we had both graduated from GFA, Savannah Tech, and I remember one time I had to run something downtown. I think it was to the mansion downtown. I had to run something, and y'all were filming a film there. And I just remember you from a hat you had on at the time. I was like, that's a cool hat he's wearing. And
the fedora.
The fedora, there you go, Indiana Jones.
That's my spring hat. Now, it's just too hot for the summertime.
It's too hot, and the deluge we had earlier in parts of town. So welcome to summer in Savannah. But in 2017, we got to work on very extensive shoot, David Harlan Russo's film, which also had Patrick Roper and a slew of other great people on it. Savior's Mule, part of the Suitcase Trilogy. Anybody who's listened to the show knows in the last couple episodes that we've talked about it. And you were the editor on that.
Right.
Definitely. And that was a long shoot, especially that last day of it.
Yeah. I remember you and I hung out and
we were hanging out
a bit,
and we were talking
late at night.
It was late. It was Friday, Saturday, and everything else. Into Sunday. I don't even remember, but it was so long. But the finished product was well worth all of the.
Absolutely, I love working with David Russo. He's awesome.
Yeah, a great gentleman.
Filmmaker.
Yeah. Let's see. You also did, and you're going to have to help me with this name on here, but it's One Happy Family from. Oh, I just mentioned that. Okay.
That was a GFA project we did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you were Tautopoulos Christophos?
Yeah, just skip over that.
Oh, let's skip over that. Okay.
Yeah,
is that a pseudonym or something?
That's a pseudonym, yeah.
Okay. I'm now doing the Men in Black thing with the light where you forget that I ever said that.
I didn't to explain. Okay, so now that you've opened this box, we gotta.
Well,
just to explain that, it's like you know how when let's say the Coen brothers edit their own film, they use a different name. So
like pseudonym.
It's kind of a joke on that whole Hollywood thing about real filmmakers can't be credited for more than like whatever above the line credits. So I was just kind of joking around. I didn't really realize that IMDb would save all that information. So,
they actually do. Yeah, some people are listening out there. Yeah.
Whoops.
Oops. Everything you do.
So
is
it's just
tracked.
kind of a little in joke. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome though. So we move up to 2018, where you were editors on those two movies I mentioned, and cinematographer on One Happy Family also, and everything else you mentioned. But then we get to 2018, and you were a production assistant on The Beach House, a TV movie.
Yep.
And then you were also in The Peanut Butter Falcon as an office production assistant.
Right.
What can you share about the day-to-day workings of being in a production office? Because not many people end up in that. Generally speaking, there's a smaller amount of people there than there are on set.
Sure.
But they're no less vital to the production. So what can you tell us your experiences about that? Or what you're allowed to tell us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think there's any, they didn't make me sign an NDA or anything, but those were two very different films, so that was really an education for me as far as working on, actual budgeted films, because when they played on The Peanut Butter Falcon, that was very, very indie, and it was, just a different crew. It was the directors, that was their first feature, and then The Beach House, that was a completely different experience in the production office because that was a Hallmark film. And obviously, those are more kind of cookie cutter, very experienced, seasoned crew. They just kind of do their thing, and there's not a lot of, there's not. It seems like it was a lot more controlled, I guess, if you want to put it that way. I'm probably doing a disservice to the filmmakers here, so I apologize for that. But
that's okay.
Just being in the production office as a PA, it was about the same thing that that as far as duties go. One of the good things about working as a PA is you get to observe the production, and if you're paying attention, you can learn a lot. So I did learn a lot on both of those films. Yeah.
So what kind of advice then would you give someone that was trying to get into the production office?
Films are usually looking for people in accounting. So that's if you're good at math and and you're good at if you're detail oriented and like spreadsheets and that sort of thing. Also, the production office is kind of the lifeline for base camp and set. So you really do a wide range of things if you're an office PA. Now, for the beach house, I was assigned to the accounting department, so I did more paperwork and I was in the office more.
Right.
But on Peanut Butter Falcon, it was more of a runner / go grab lunch, just kind of anything and everything. Yeah. So your question was what advice to people wanting to get into that sort of job?
What were some best practices, things that worked well for you that you learned from both of those experiences?
I don't think it's really that different than being a set PA. It's just that I think I heard one of my friends who's a POC say something about it the other day about you just kind of feel like you're not as a part of the crew, but you're doing the same things as a set PA does. You're just basically holding everything together and making sure people have what they need. It really is if you're detail oriented, and that goes for everywhere, not just the production office, but if you're observant, you pay attention, and you're really excited to be there, then you usually do a pretty good job. The person that you want to talk to usually, if you want to work in the production office, is the production office coordinator. And that's how I kind of got in on Peanut Butter Falcon, because at the time they weren't hiring for day players. Okay. And so I don't know if I should say this, but I just showed up. So, and I said,
sometimes it happens that way,
I just knocked on the door and said, hey, can I talk to the production office coordinator? And so I said, sure. And so I walked in, I said, hi, and I introduced myself and said...
Was that after security escorted you? No.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. That was, and like I said before, Peanut Butter Falcon is a lot different than the beach house because, on Peanut Butter Falcon, they did have a lot more needs as far as, something would come up and then they would need someone to fill in. So there's a lot more opportunity, I think, for day players on that. And if anybody who's listening doesn't know the difference between a day player and run a show, if you're hired on as a day player, that means that they can call you the night before and say, hey, we've got, a problem and we need extra PAs.
Exactly.
Come in tomorrow. And so you're kind of on call. A run of show type situation is where you're actually hired for the entire production, for the whole thing. So day playing there was just like, hey, we need somebody to go pick up so-and-so and bring them to set today. Right. Okay, fine. And so I come in. So it's just, being available and, you have to kind of get over being scared of doing anything because you really do have to just suck it up. Yeah, just do anything. I mean,
right.
Take a breath and say, okay, I got it. No problem.
Cool. So then we get into 2018, and there's two films that you did. Actually, there's one before that. Okay, I want to get into this one before, backtrack a little bit. Lost in the Woods you did with actor Mark Redman. Mm-hmm. What's that about?
All right, so that basically started out. Mark came to me and said, listen, I need some stuff for my reel. Would you go and just shoot some stuff with me going through a range of emotions and stuff like that? So he kind of scripted out this little scenario.
Okay.
And we just went out in the woods and shot it. And as we were doing it, I said, hey, Mark, if we just get a few more pieces here and there, we could actually make this into a little short, just kind of fun thing to do.
Awesome.
And so that's where it came from. And we shot a little bit of extra footage to tie, basically it's a guy lost in the woods and he's going through these emotions of, despondency, despair, anger, etc. And so we just kind of shot some extra footage to tile that together and then turn it into
if
a
I were
short.
lost in the woods, it'd be sheer terror. I'd start there and probably stay there for a while.
Yeah.
Somebody save me. But
it's not up right now. I'm going to put it back up on my Vimeo page so people can see it again. I just haven't had it up for a while. So.
All right. Then a little bit later, I'm not sure what year this was, but On the Spectrum.
All right, that one's been that's been a long-term project.
It's a long-term project.
Documentaries.
It's a documentary,
are,
yes.
So, so switching back over to that, when I first kind of decided to change careers back in around 2008, documentaries were my thing, and that was what I first kind of got interested in when I decided to get back into filmmaking after being interested, of course, since high school. So that one in particular. It's something that I've been close to because I have Asperger's. I'm on the spectrum somewhere.
Okay.
And actually, I know I told you before that I haven't been officially diagnosed, but I actually spoke with my wife, and she says, yes, I have been officially diagnosed. So I don't know.
Well, if the wife says so.
Right. Well, she's, she's kind of helping, your partner helps you through these things. So she's a great person, and love Denise. So, but.
So
Asperger's, being on the spectrum, that's always been something I've been wanting to make a project on that for a long time. And I met Nick Seward, who's a local photographer, because I was doing jobs for a company where I would shoot basically little documentary profiles for local businesses. And they would go up on Yelp or Zillow, whatever, these websites. And so I did one of these projects for Nick to promote his photography business. And then that's how I met him. And through interacting with him, finding out that he's also got Asperger's and the struggles that he has as a photographer trying to do his art and, dealing with all those issues, I talked with him and said, listen, I would really like to follow you around and, shoot some footage, and let's just see how this goes. So over the course of about a year, maybe a year and a half, I shot interviews with people that were he does art photography as well as, like
he does.
Weddings and, things like that. So his art photography, I followed him around on a lot of his shoots and interviewed some of his subjects and things like that and collaborators, and then kind of wove that into the struggles that I think all artists have with trying to survive and make a living when there's kind of this cultural, I don't know how to really explain. It's just kind of the starving artist kind of concept where.
And if you maybe add Asperger's to the equation there, does that make it more difficult sometimes?
Yeah,
or
that was That was the point of the doc. The point of the doc was that, not only are these struggles that I think all artists have to try to, make a living from their work, but also being on the spectrum creates even more complications. And that's, talking about the subject, being on the spectrum, having Asperger's, a lot of times. And I don't know if we need to go this deep into it, but you can stop me if I get too in the woods. But a lot of people will make a comment like, oh, yeah, well, I think I'm on the spectrum too because I have, whatever. And sometimes it's done as a little bit of a slide or whatever. And they're just kind of saying, hey, everybody has those issues, just suck it up and, move on. That's not really the issue. The actual, what's going on when a person is on the spectrum is not only do you have these daily struggles that every human has, but there are some added complications with communication and with, people also liken it to the Rain Man thing,
But you're definitely, it's not an intelligence thing.
No,
because
usually not.
Usually people like that are highly intelligent, my understanding of it, and correct me if I'm wrong.
It's a spectrum disorder.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that you can have people who are functional and people who aren't. So you'll have people all over the place. There can, some people require, a caretaker to actually just, live life. And then, but there are people like me and Nick and others who are, a lot of times, I didn't really understand that this was a problem with me until, maybe 10 years ago. because it's kind of like the thing. I know you have glasses. I wear glasses too.
Yeah.
Anybody who's...
Well, that's to protect my secret identity.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
When I'm out fighting crime, saving
Savannah
from bad sound.
Gotcha. Right. Well, usually it's a mask, but if the glasses are working for you.
Yeah. Well.
But no, if you have corrected vision, you know that when you go through the process of finding out that you need glasses, it's kind of one of those things where you sit down and the eye doctor puts the thing on your eyes, and then he says, flips through the little lenses, and then you realize what you haven't been seeing the whole time, right?
Right.
It's like, oh my gosh, everybody sees the world this way. Yeah.
I was like, wow, I can actually see now. This is amazing. It's kind of like I'm type 2 diabetic, and when I got that diagnosis years ago, I thought, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world for me. I can't eat food. I crawled up into a ball and didn't know what to do. And I took classes to learn how to manage my diabetes better, and I've done well. Had a few, hills and valleys there, but it's a different way of looking at the world. But people with Asperger's, there's nothing wrong with them per se. I mean, this idea of normal, there's no such thing as normal anyway, because you're your own individual. We all bring our own individual gifts to whatever creative things that we do and all that. So I watched it again last night on the Spectrum, and is that available for people to view?
Sure, yeah,
it's on your Vimeo page.
Yep. So
if you look up Jesse Perry on that, if you're interested,
please take a look at it.
That's where he has that. Is there anything else you want to talk about, like on that, or are we good?
No, I think we got. I mean,
okay.
The point was.
Thank you for your insight.
Yeah, the point I just wanted to kind of cover is that it's not. I don't like to call it like a disorder.
It's not
as much as it's because the thing is, yes, you do have this dysfunction that usually has to do with social communication and reading, in between the lines, and a lot of nonverbal language that what people who are on the spectrum call neurotypicals.
Okay.
What neurotypicals kind of generally do, you don't catch those things. And personally, I learned when I was young to fake it, to emulate neurotypical behavior, if you want to put it that way. And so it's something that you learn how to do it, but it's also exhausting. So because you're constantly doing, it's like you have to process 2 or 3 times, instead, whereas people just kind of, take it for granted if they don't struggle with it. So it's, it's not a disability.
And if you're a person that suffers from depression, that can complicate things too. That can, so let's move on though. Thank you for your insight on that. And I think it's been very valuable for our listeners here.
Yeah, I don't mind talking about it at all.
Yeah. On the Spectrum documentary. The next thing that you did, and I got to be part of this, definitely a big passion project of yours, a project that we've only seen just the beginning of. It's called The Construct, and it's from 2018, and it's part of Horizon. This is number 3, The Construct. Mm-hmm. It's part of a series. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the Horizon series, it's basically 4 short films that tie together. When I kind of started trying to figure out if I should try to pursue narrative filmmaking, I had this, it was almost like a thesis or a dissertation that I wanted to transform into a story. And so that's kind of what the series is about. It covers 4 different time periods. Number 3 was done first because that one is current day, so it makes it the easiest to shoot. Okay. And so when I finally pulled the trigger and decided to try to get together some friends and go ahead and get that made, that was the one I picked, simply because it's the easiest to film. And it deals with. Do you want to go into the kind of the storyline?
Yeah. Sure.
Backing up to number 1. Number 1 deals with Mayan mythology, of all things.
Interesting.
And if you're familiar with the 2012 End of the World thing,
yep.
It kind of got twisted in popular culture into this thing about, there was going to be this party and then the calendar ended and then something was going to happen, right? And we were all going to die. And, of course, it didn't happen. But
as far as we know.
That was a popular misunderstanding of what the Mayan mythology was about. Their calendar was based on this mythology about the Earth being recreated. Mm-hmm. So there have been different epochs where the Earth had been, this way, and then it got destroyed and recreated, and so forth. And that's when the calendar would run out, is when the recreation would happen in Mayan mythology. So,
like, here we go again, new calendar.
There's a lot of stuff to unpack there, and I know we don't have to talk about all this right now, but that's kind of what Horizon Number 1 deals with, is the mythology and some of the things that underlie, I think, some of the concepts that we're dealing with today with technology and transhumanism.
Okay. Yeah, that gives us a good interlude to talk about that. Defining transhumanism it's
tricky.
Very tricky. There are a lot of theories out there, postulations. It's an integration, or I guess augmentation, of human and artificial intelligence. Maybe like bionic limbs. I think of the $6 Million Man, one of my all-time favorite shows back in the day. Terminator, to an extent, because that's a cybernetic organism with living tissue.
Sure.
So those are some examples. One thing that I think that transhumanism leads to is eliminating aging, enhancing strength, and intelligence too. And
that's a lot of what the literature deals with nowadays.
And then it leads to the next step would be posthumanism, correct?
I don't know.
To an extent, or are they kind of...
Depending on who you talk to and how they define the terms, it depends.
Because I think post basically means it's beyond the human condition. It's like total full integration with computers, AI. So...
Yeah, with me it works on two levels.
Okay.
And I found a quote by a theologian named Janine Thweatt Bates that she actually had, this is like huge dissertation on the post-human as a metaphor. And so the second level that it works on, and this is not particularly transhumanism as in, cyborgs and whatnot.
Right.
But there's a quote that I've kind of been working off of from her. It's the post-human construct, an active speculation about who we are and who we might become. So it's just it's a way of thinking about humanity that allows you to imagine what's going to be next. Because as human beings we're not static. We can even look back as far as just the past couple of centuries and see how in general the population has changed physiologically. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think it's so hard to imagine, especially as we see the advances in technology. And
well, everybody's tethered to their cell phone now. They can't imagine going on without it. And you take a cell phone away from a kid or an adult such as me, and it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Is there air outside? Is there sunshine? I'm not sure sometimes because
that's because they're so useful, right?
Computers, they make our lives much easier, but somehow technology brings us together. And technology is never really the one at fault. It's how we use or misuse
technology
it.
is amoral.
Yeah, exactly. And it can bring us together, but it can also alienate us, even within our own families. And sometimes it can bring us together, but it's exactly how you use the technology that benefits you or can be your destruction.
Yeah, so that's more of a sociological discussion than it is a technological issue. Because with the Second Horizon thing deals with technology itself. So just to segue in, so Horizon Number 2 is the scientist, and it deals with the idea that technology is what actually makes us human. So,
interesting.
Like I said before, technology is amoral. You agreed it's what we do with it. It's what makes the difference. And if you think about it, using, if you want to define technology broadly, you can say that could be stone tools. So the first time people, did anything to try to augment their own abilities, they implemented technology, and that's what differentiates us from lower animals. So that's the argument.
It's like making fire for the first time, the tools that led to that, and so...
So technology is just augmenting our own abilities with our tools.
So would you say that quote that you read earlier, would that be what inspired the Horizon series?
Or the one about the posthuman as a construct?
Yeah, okay. So that would be your inspiration, per se.
Yeah, that's the underlying. I mean, like I said, it works on two levels. So you've got the kind of the philosophical level there of the post-human being a term about how to imagine what will be coming in the future for humanity. Also, it kind of applies to transhumanism, where you have the idea of people augmenting themselves with their technology, which I don't think is that far off. It's just a matter of time before we begin to be able to develop circuits with stuff that's a lot more compatible with our biology than silicon is. So it won't be, I think everybody's nightmare is like Terminator, where you're, grafting metal into your body and stuff like that. And that's never going to work. It's never going to take. But when we have, nanoparticles that can do those functions, and you don't see any difference in your physiology, it's definitely going to take off.
That's definitely something we can talk about, because we're going to come back and talk about Star Trek after a short break here, because that's one of our favorite things that we love to talk about here.
Yep.
And so we're going to do that real quick. We're going to go on a quick break, and we'll be right back.
WRUU brings you the most diverse and passionate local radio programming on the air in Savannah. This all-volunteer and nonprofit community radio station accepts no money from any form of government. Our diversity and independence is made possible only through the generous financial support of listeners like you. We rely on your annual and ongoing monthly contributions to cover the many costs associated with bringing you our broadcast and web programming. If you are a contributor, thank you. If you are not yet a contributor, please show your appreciation of the role WRUU plays in your life by becoming a contributor in any amount. You can donate quickly and easily by credit card or check. Just find the donate and subscribe links at wruu.org. Thanks for listening to and supporting WRUU.
The Ogeechee Riverkeeper offers monthly canoe and kayak excursions in all of the river's watershed through October. This year's paddles will take adventurers from the river's twisting and turning northern sections near Wadley, west of Augusta, to broad coastal stretches near Harris Neck, south of Savannah. The trips range from beginner to intermediate in difficulty. Boat rental is available. For more information, visit OgeecheeRiverkeeper.org.
WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul.
Listen to the best eclectic mix of music on Evening Eclectic on Sundays from 10 to midnight on WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia.
And we're back with our guest here, filmmaker extraordinaire, Jesse Perry. So let's talk some Star Trek.
Awesome.
Okay.
One of my favorite subjects.
What are the aspects of why you like Star Trek?
What are some of the aspects?
What are like some of the things from early childhood that made you gravitate towards Star Trek?
Well, when I was a kid, I was more into Star Wars.
Me too.
It was more action-oriented, yeah.
I think it's because what was there, which in our time, in our generation, of course, Star Trek was around, but I grew up with Star Wars. We grew up with Star Wars, and it was more space fantasy. Star Trek is more science fiction fact. It's more factual based, I guess. Because a lot of scientists were actually inspired by Star Trek to...
Yeah, you do hear that a lot more than Star Wars, yeah.
I've heard the only thing that actually could be replicated, and this may have changed, is the ion engine of a TIE fighter that we could make with our current technology from Star Wars. Now, Star Trek's a little different, so, they had the pads that they had back on the series. Yeah. Now we have... all these tablets and stuff and everything. We have our cell phones and tricorders and stuff, and we have cell phones. And so very interesting. But Star Trek versus Star Wars, how have they influenced you? How have they, I know they're sci-fi, so you love sci-fi just like I do. And what aspects of those, have have you carried into your filmmaking? Obviously, with like Construct, if people have seen that already, which it deals with a lot of, there's that sci-fi aspect to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
definitely, it's
the construct's kind of ambiguous, but the Star Trek, I got into that when I was more in high school, and I guess you could sum up my interest in it in the word Roddenberryism, I guess, because I don't know if you know, but near the end of his life, Gene Roddenberry kind of came to see himself like a prophet almost to communicate ideals, because the way people responded to the original Star Trek series and the cultural commentary that was included in a lot of those early 1960s Star Trek episodes, he really took that to heart, and then tried to kind of turn that into, he wanted to kind of be a leader of a movement to, instill just basic human values, human rights values into the culture at large. So
Star Wars was always about good versus evil, and Star Trek was more about living in this Gene Roddenberry universe where it didn't matter who you were, where there were racial barriers that were broken on the first series with Uhura. There's so many things they've tackled a lot of, through all the incarnations of Star Trek, they've tackled a lot of social issues head on. And that's one of the things I like about it, obviously.
It was two different formats too, because Star Wars was more film, and then Star Trek was television series, so you had a lot more iteration with Star Trek, so they could deal with a lot more different, varied topics. So
what helped me, I think, become a Star Trek fan even more growing up in my age range was there was about 13, 14 years with no Star Wars films after Return of the Jedi.
Right.
So then Star Trek The Next Generation comes on, and Voyager and Deep Space Nine. We could go on, and we won't discuss Discovery because I'm not a big fan of that.
No comment.
No comment. Yeah, let's just say no comment. But there's rumors that Picard's coming to that.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that either.
I don't know how I feel about that either.
Only because, and I'm drawing a blank now, who's the primary guy involved with Discovery?
Yeah.
He was involved with the Star Trek films.
Exactly.
The 2000s Star Trek films.
Insert name here.
Yeah.
That's how much I care about.
Later. But yeah, just, if there were some different names of that were involved with it, I might be a little bit more.
I want to switch gears real quick because the sun's getting low here. Okay. Tomorrowland is a big influence, and it's a movie directed by Brad Bird, who also did the screenplay with Damon Lindelof. And
Lost fame.
Yeah, and it stars George Clooney, Britt Robertson, and Hugh Laurie. So what's so important to you about that film? Because I was watching on social media how you just love that film.
If you know any of my friends that have had to listen to me talk about this, I can really get on a rant. But I've always been interested in the concept that they built the film off of, which was Epcot, meaning not Epcot the theme park, but Epcot the original idea that Walt Disney had. And not a lot of people, more people are now aware of it, but just a few years back, a lot of people weren't aware of the fact that Walt Disney, just before he died, like literally months before he died, made a pitch film for Epcot, it was supposed to be like Tomorrowland.
Oh, wow.
It was supposed to actually be a real city. And he was getting into urban design, and so there was going to be a theme park aspect of it, but the majority of what Epcot was going to be, which is everything down in Florida now, was originally going to be this experimental prototype community of tomorrow. And that was what Epcot standed for. So that's the idea they took into Tomorrowland. And, people, argue about the execution. I don't think Brad Bird and Damon Lindelof were really happy because, Disney executives got involved. And, when that happens, the film stars get watered down and changed. So that, there was a lot of that going on that kind of hindered it from becoming
a reality.
Yeah, the delivery wasn't so great, but still a good film. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there, but there is a fan cut of the film, because we're never going to get a director's cut because Disney doesn't do that stuff. They don't listen. I'm sorry, I get angry with Disney a little bit because they don't really serve the the hardcore fans. They just want to get the majority. But anyway, there's a fan cut out there. You can find it if you internet So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Wonderful internet, huh?
It's called the Dreamer's Cut. So
the Dreamer's Cut.
Search for it. Basically, it's a fan-built director's cut of the film, which kind of does it a little bit more service than the theatrical version. But it was just the concept behind the whole film of, there's this experimental prototype city that is kind of like its own thing, separate from our reality, but that we have access to, that we can go into, and where the limitations and things that are holding us back here, like fear and bureaucracy and things like that just hinder innovation, aren't there, or they're in a minimized sense. And so there's a lot of things that are it's the future of tomorrow, or the city of tomorrow,
to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Yep. Yeah.
In a way. So, I mean, it's very similar. So I will have to check it out. I will admit, I did not see it.
It's not uncommon, I know.
I was going to see it, and there was something else going on.
I won't shame you.
Yeah, but now...
But go see it.
Now it's on my list of things to see. Filmmakers who inspired you. Let's talk about that. The Coen brothers, right?
Oh, man. Oh. Yeah. Masters of dialogue and character. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the Coen brothers, Joel and his brother,
Ethan?
Yeah, they changed it? Oh, no.
All right, they changed it.
Yeah. Joel and Ethan, responsible for Fargo, the TV series.
Mm-hmm. Did they have as much to do with that? I mean, I know it's based on somewhat the world of the film. But
somewhat. I mean, but they've got a lot of credits for it, a lot of, TV awards and such. They've won 4 Oscars, known for some of the movies that the Coen brothers are known for are No Country for Old Men.
Excellent. Love it.
2007. It kind of frustrated me a little bit, that movie, but
really?
I get it. The ending, I think, is what kind of frustrated me a little bit. But
one critic said it's a rumination on the nature of evil. And if you take it as that, it's awesome.
Yeah. If
you want like a traditional, hero's journey, you're not going to get it. Sorry.
Go watch Star Wars for that.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Except The Last Jedi. Or Solo. Let's see. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? In 2000, they did that. And widely popular film.
Yeah, they got famous for that one.
Yeah. The Big Lebowski, that's like a cult classic there from 98. And that's just to name a few.
You didn't mention The Lady Killers. I'm sorry, but I have to bring that one up.
I didn't mention The Lady Killers. No, I didn't.
But that's one that nobody sees. There's not even a Blu-ray release of that one.
Wow.
Which is such a dishonor to that film, because that's a great film. It's a great comedy. Everybody should see it. The Lady Killers.
Okay. What about Jeff Nichols? He's a filmmaker that has inspired you.
Right. Yeah.
He did Take Shelter and Midnight Special. Now, I saw Midnight Special, and I think I had different expectations of what that movie was. And sometimes, we bring our own preconceived notions of what we think a film is from watching the trailers or whatever we think. And it was a good film, but it wasn't one of my favorites. But
gotcha.
But
you're right. I mean, that's what I love about Jeff Nichols. And if you go back, his first film was Shotgun Stories, which that's hard to find. I mean, it never got a theatrical release or anything. That was something he funded himself and made with Michael Shannon. So that was his first collaboration with Michael Shannon, who he's
before
worked
Zod?
with. Yeah, before Zod, way before Zod. Yeah.
Okay.
Led to Zod, probably.
Yeah, led to Zod.
Because, after that, he worked with Michael Shannon again on Take Shelter, which was another fantastic film, but it's not one that you're going to, eat popcorn and go home and say, oh, that was a great movie, It's more of a challenging psychological thriller with sci-fi elements in it.
Okay.
So, yeah, I really like his style of integrating those elements together and telling stories about, I guess they're more accessible to me because I don't come from a large city or a part of the country that's, kind of considered more of a cultural
somewhere
hubs.
Land.
Yeah, I'm from, basically Vidalia, Georgia, and, I've lived, out, rural all my life. So it's, he's, if you ever listen to some interviews with him, he mentions how he's scared to death to go to Hollywood. He doesn't ever want to do that now. So, he's kind of the...
Interesting.
Yeah, I like the fact that he's kind of this, on the outskirts type guy. And,
now, another filmmaker that inspired you is Claudia Miranda, He's responsible for Tron Legacy in the visual realm, and Oblivion with Tom Cruise. And there's not many Tom Cruise films that I don't like, because I love action and adventure films, and Oblivion was very interesting. That was where, I don't want to give it away, but it's kind of like a clone thing going on there. Is that the right one? Yeah.
Both of those were collaborations with Joseph Kosinski, the director. Now, Kosinski, that filmmaking is his second career as well. He used to be an architect, so he comes from the design world. And you can tell, that's what I love about Kosinski's films, and he collaborates with Miranda a lot, is the visuals of Kosinski's films.
The cinematography,
they have that very designed, sleek, futuristic-y look, which I don't know if I mentioned this, but Miranda also DP'd Tomorrowland.
Oh, interesting.
He did.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't have that here. Excellent.
I love Miranda's work.
Anything else that he did that sparked your interest?
Well, I mean, there's not a film really I can mention that's really on the list, but he got his start in the grip department, grip and electric department of working for Fincher, Dale Fincher.
Some of the hardest working people in film.
Yeah.
Grip and electric.
So he was like on Fight Club, doing hanging lights and stuff.
But he can't tell you about it, right? This is like Fight Club.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I've got a few favorite films, like sci-fi type stuff that I'd like to mention.
Fire away.
Recently, and this one really kind of blew me away. I don't have a whole lot. I didn't go to film school, so I don't have a whole lot of, French New Wave directors that are my favorite. Whatever that
Yeah.
What
but
I've
you know
done.
what you like.
Well, what I've done is, I felt like it's kind of not to put down anybody's film education or anything like that, but. Even if you go to film school, you still have to find out who you are as a filmmaker. So
you got to find your voice.
Yeah, just kind of cutting to the chase. I just would identify films that I liked, and then would watch them and try to find out what made them good. And so, Arrival recently.
I loved Arrival with Amy Adams.
Yeah.
And Hawkeye. I can never. Jeremy Renner.
Jeremy Renner. Yeah.
Renner.
Yeah. Denis Villeneuve is really, really amazing visual director as well.
It's a cerebral film. It's not, it's really about linguistics. The whole film is about linguistics, which is a fascinating
it's
area.
About time travel without actually talking about time travel.
Yeah, and like a lot of good movies, you don't have to see the monster. It's not all about, whatever the alien is that's visiting. They were just trying to make contact, which Contact with Jodie Foster is another great film.
Oh, absolutely, definitely.
Definitely love that.
Soderbergh's Solaris is another one, and a lot of people haven't seen that one.
I saw part of it, and I don't think I ever really got through it.
It's a great psychological
Was
thriller.
Clooney in that one? Or am
Yes.
I wrong? He was. Okay.
Yep. And Jeremy Davies, who was awesome, by the way. Excellent performance. But Under the Skin is another one, Jonathan Glazer.
No, I did not see that.
That's from a few years back. That one's really freaky. So if you don't like unsettling, non-hero's journey type films, it might not be for you, but I would recommend it for anyone, especially people who are into sci-fi, because it's definitely got that psychological thriller type of weird. When I define cinema, or filmmaking, it's metaphor and artifice. That's what I kind of like the words I use. And so I like films that are like that, like The Fountain, Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain, which it's funny, you'll get people that either love it or hate it.
Was that with Hugh Jackman?
Hugh Jackman. And
that was a very intense, just brilliantly beautiful film. I do remember that one.
Yeah.
And just like, wow.
Yeah, it made a splash, but it was one of those things where whenever I bring it up, it's like people will be like, "Oh, The Fountain! God, what in the world? What was that?" Or else they'll be like, "That's amazing! I love the film."
Well, I was just watching Blade Runner 2049 before I came in here, and that's one of the best sci-fi films of the decade, if not ever. Yeah. And it's definitely a slower pace. It is a thinking person's film. You have to, and I like
the visuals in that one again.
Yeah, I mean,
Denis Villeneuve.
We're so used to the blow this up, blow that up, and explosions and this and that sometimes we forget to just delve into the characters, into their stories, and just kind of swim around in that and experience what those characters are and everything about them. And So that's another great film. So is there any left on your list there? Because we've got to wrap up soon. So
Yeah, sure. Syriana, Stephen Gagin. These are not like sci-fi films, but
I saw Syriana. That was good.
yeah, Lady in the Water. I love that one. And I also love the work of Christopher Doyle, the cinematographer on that film.
Okay.
You know, some people, not so crazy about Lady in the Water.
That was a Shyamalan film, wasn't it?
M. Night Shyamalan, yeah.
Okay.
The Rum Diary, Master and Commander, There'll Be Blood. All great films. So.
I love Master and Commander. My dad he was a sailor, so he grew up around the water. My whole family has.
Best buddy film ever.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a great buddy film, too. But, it's a little over the top of what, The
chemistry between, I love, help me out, Stephen Maturin was the character. Who, oh, gosh. You remember his name? I'm drawing a blank now.
We're talking about the Master and Commander himself?
Yeah. No, that was
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, thank you. It'll come to me when we turn the mic off. But
yeah,
anyway.
As soon as we turn the mic off.
He's one of my favorite actors, and I can't remember his name.
We'll look at each other and go, I know who it is. One last thing I want to just touch on real quick, because we're running really close on time here. We want to discuss the creative ways to foster independent filmmaking. And this show is one way to give a voice to the Savannah film community.
You're doing a great service to the film community.
Well, thank you. Shameless plug there. And not meaning to. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being on. And but the Savannah film community, bringing it together, we had talked about that because you and I had a conversation before. And what are some ideas that you have that...
Okay, so I can get kind of passionate about this because... here's what I kind of see as the issue facing us at the moment. There are productions coming into town, and that is putting some people to work. But, it's not going to be for everybody. There are a lot of people who are in town who are also interested in not just having a film career, but also in filmmaking or becoming a filmmaker. And sometimes that crosses over. People have a film career and they want to be a filmmaker, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think if we were to foster the people who are part of that second group and really kind of cultivate an indie film type of an atmosphere here, and to encourage that type of thing, that I think we would see some people who are here. There's some latent talent in the pool here that would rise to the top.
There's definitely a lot of very talented people in this city, and there are powers that be that are working towards that. I mean, people have a lot of Facebook groups. They have their film groups. The Savannah Film is doing a lot. But beyond that, if you were in charge of everything, what would you do in one sentence?
Well,
that's a lot.
Not to I don't mean to shoot that down. I don't know if that's going to be like the answer. I think it's going to be everybody doing their own thing, because there are people who are doing things like Lynn Legeman is having screenings. There's a guy named Mason Boudreau who's doing a pop-up theater thing in town that's new, and that really needs some support. Just to plug in it, not because I have anything to do with it, but I just know the guy and I know he's doing a good job, and we need that, right? We need somewhere that's like an art house theater. We do not have that in Savannah. If we had somewhere where people could show their films, get feedback, interact with other filmmakers, then we could, help each other get better and, see what comes out. I think maybe people would be surprised at what's here that, that would come to fruition if we were to give it a little bit of
a plethora of great talent here. And on that note, it's time for us to wrap up. Jesse, I want to thank you for joining me today here on Savannah on Film. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Savannah on Film wants to feature film professionals at different levels, and we'd love to talk to you too. So Savannah on Film is a voice for the Savannah film industry. If you would like to email us at savannaonfilm@gmail.com, then we might get a chance to be on the show here. And we are also on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. And you have been listening to Savannah on Film. And I'm your host, Ed Susevich, on WRUU 107.5 FM, Savannah, Georgia. We are WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. You have been listening to another episode of Savannah on Film, where we give a voice to the Savannah film community. please like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter. This program was originally broadcast on 107.5 FM in Savannah, Georgia, and worldwide on www.wruu.org. Join us next time for more intriguing insights into the vibrant Savannah film community here at Savannah on Film.